The VE celebrations reach their climax across Europe. In London, the Queen Mother and her daughters appear on the palace balcony, just as they did 50 years ago. 250,000 people gather in the Mall as the music and the memories come flooding back. And as France remembers too, the country's new president takes his place alongside the man he succeeds. Good afternoon. Half a century after the Second World War victory in Europe, 250,000 people have gathered to watch the Queen Mother, the Queen and Princess Margaret appear on the balcony of Buckingham Palace, joining in the singing and the celebrations just as they did all those years ago. Outside the capital, the day of celebration has been marked in villages, towns and cities across the country. Tonight, when the sun goes down, there'll be a nationwide 2-minute silence in memory of the millions who lost their lives in pursuit of victory.
It was the moment that encapsulated the mood of these 3 days of commemoration. The Queen Mother, now almost 95, on the balcony of Buckingham Palace, a poignant link between past and present. Below her, a mass of humanity stretching almost as far as the eye could see, and the palace forecourt transformed for a day into an open-air stage. There'll be bluebirds over white cliffs of Dover. Tomorrow. The sights and sounds, all so reminiscent of that day 50 years ago, seemed understandably to move her greatly. The vast crowds had converged on the palace, just as they did on VE Day itself, to pay tribute to the woman who, as Queen, had commanded the admiration of a country at war by refusing to leave London, even when the palace was bombed. Half a century ago, those same scenes were the focal point of the nation's celebrations. For days it had been clear that the war in Europe was all but over. Now, though, it was official. Time and again the King and Queen were summoned, and time and again they responded to the entreaties of the crowds. Today, many of those gathered outside the palace were reliving their experiences of 50 years ago.
It was just out of this world, the fact that you all felt free again, you know, that you never had any more worries.
Walked home very late at night feeling as if this could go on forever, you know, you felt so wonderful.
Today, it seemed that London was once again the scene of the biggest street party in the world. At times, it all seemed a little overwhelming. Then, daylight fireworks almost shrouded the palace in smoke and caused mild alarm on the balcony. It was an extravaganza that no one will forget as these commemorations approach their climax. Jenny Bond, BBC News.
And Jenny Bond joins me now from Hyde Park. Jenny, how is this great weekend of celebration going to end?
Well, it's going to end in a great climax here at Hyde Park. There have been huge crowds here ever since the Buckingham Palace service. I think all of them came down here, and the crowds were so big at one point that they actually had to close the gates. They've been enjoying tea dances, a workers' playtime concert. We've had the Red Devils over here parachuting down. It's all been terrific. And the big problem that the organisers have now is to try to get everyone out. They keep on appealing to everyone to leave so that they can set up for tonight, which is for ticket holders only.
And considering the crowds, there'll be no problems with security at all?
No, this is the only little hiccup in trying to get people out for this grand finale tonight, when there'll be another great concert here with Vera Lynn again and the Tiller Girls. But of course the most symbolic moment, perhaps of all 3 days, will be at 8:38, when there's 2 minutes silence, and then the Queen will light the first of a chain of beacons across the country.
Jenny, thank you.
The Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh, with them the Princess Royal and Commander Timothy Lawrence, the Princess Margaret and the Duchess of Kent. Her Majesty has been welcomed, as befits his high office, by the Lord Lieutenant for Greater London, Field Marshal the Lord Bramwell, who has played such an exemplary role throughout. He has presented the Lord Privy Seal, the Viscount Cranborne, the Leader of the House of Lords, Viscount Astor, the Under Secretary of State for the National Heritage. And walking with them now, Major Michael Parker, whose remarkable, almost reckless imagination has created and produced all these spectacular events, including, of course, those at Buckingham Palace this lunchtime, and this evening's grand finale, which, if everything goes according to plan, and it is extremely ambitious, promises to be sensational.
From the massed tri-service bands, the grandeur and pomp of Elgar fills the night air. She walks down between the company of pikemen and musketeers, 43 men, 28 pikemen and 12 musketeers, in their ancient uniforms, the company dressed as a company of foot soldiers dating back to the time of King Charles I, about 1640. Her Majesty making her way to a dais in the middle of the arena, from where she will light the beacon. First of all, a number of people will be presented to her. Vice Admiral Sir Geoffrey Dalton, National President of the Royal British Legion, Mr. Bruno Peake, who's been responsible for organising the beacons and bonfires all over the country, and Major George Rock from the Royal British Legion, who's assisted him. On either side, the Union flag and the national standard of the Royal British Legion. Flag carried by the National Standard Bearer Ray Thomas, formerly of the 3rd Battalion, the Coldstream Guards, and the National Standard by Peter Grimes, an ex-Royal Welsh Fusilier.
Your Majesty, as we have gathered here to commemorate the end of the war in Europe 50 years ago, let us remember in particular one person whose courage, tenacity, and genius in leadership made the victory possible: Winston Churchill. No man has ever better articulated the hopes and fears of this nation and touched the soul of Britain as he did. His words still ring in our ears. 50 years ago today, he stood on a balcony in Whitehall and spoke to the vast crowds there. He said, "God bless you all. This is your victory. It is the victory of the cause of freedom in every land. In all our long history, we have never seen a greater day than this. Everyone, man or woman, has done their best. Everyone has tried. Neither the long years, nor the dangers, nor the fierce attacks of the enemy have in any way weakened the independent resolve of the British nation. God bless you all." Later that same day, he spoke to the crowds again. My dear friends, this is your hour. This is not victory of a party or of any class. It's a victory of the great British nation as a whole. We were the first in this ancient island to draw the sword against tyranny. There we stood, alone. We came back after long months from the jaws of death, out of the mouth of hell, while all the world wondered. When shall the reputation and faith of this generation of British men and women fail? I say that in the long years to come, not only will the people of this island, but of the world, wherever the bird of freedom chirps in human hearts, look back to what we've done and they will say, do not despair. Do not yield to violence and tyranny. March straight forward and die if need be, unconquered. And so let us stand across the nation and remember in silence all those who made the ultimate sacrifice.
Your Majesty, 2,000 beacons, for centuries the traditional means of announcing momentous events, are being lit throughout your kingdom. Carlton Hill, high above Edinburgh, where the Lord Provost, the Right Honourable the Norman Irons, has just signalled the beginning of the celebrations. Crowds are gathered there, as they are in towns and villages all over Great Britain, to celebrate the same message that caused unparalleled rejoicing 50 years ago tonight, the message of peace. Over the water in Northern Ireland, an unusual beacon sight afloat on the estuary at Bangor. As in the rest of the United Kingdom, the war exacted a heavy toll here on both the civilian and military fronts, uniting all the people in the fight against the common enemy. Tonight, they are united once again in their thousands in the name of peace and of reconciliation. And finally, Wales, where on the Brecon beacons, over the past 2 days, 40 young people recruited locally from the Army Cadet Force, the Air Training Squadron and Sea Cadets have been working towards this moment, building their beacon for youth on Penarvan, one of the highest mountains in Wales. Everything needed for the ceremony has been carried 3,000 feet up steep mountain tracks to the summit, a task dedicated to those children, both on the home front and abroad, who for 6 years of their young lives were the innocent victims of a world at war.
Guard of honor! Quick! March! Guard of honor! Halt!
Caniatadid Ganil Golseth, Aran and Yeyengted.
Permission to light the beacon, ma'am.
Light beacon! Guard of honor! Advance! Turn!
This beacon is dedicated to all those young people, both at home and overseas, children of the ghettos, the concentration camps, the war zones and the Blitz, who were never able to celebrate the end of hostilities. And to those who, although they survived, were touched by the dark shadow of conflict and whose lives would never be the same again. We also look forward with hope and a commitment charged with the responsibility for the future and the prospect of a better, more peaceful world.
As the young people say,
to celebrate, let us go back once more to that VE night 50 years ago, when feelings of happiness and relief were tinged with memories of sadness and loss. The beautiful voice of Master Anthony Way. In the darkest days of the Blitz, when the whole nation felt threatened, amongst the rubble and destruction of their once loved homes, a brave little flower took root and flourished in the mayhem. It was called London Pride.
London pride is of love. free. London pride means all it all to us, and the pride it forever will be. City, stumbling forward, take us on the stay, city, smuggling charter, cradle of our memories, hopes and fears. Every blitz your resistance toughening, from the Ritz to the anchor and cross. Nothing ever could override the
And now, our very own pride, the pride of the nation at war, the force's sweetheart, Dame Vera Lynn.
When the lights go on again, all over the world, and the boys are home again, all over the world, and rain or snow is all that may fall from the skies above. A kiss won't mean goodbye, but hello to love. When the lights go on again, all over the world, and the ships they sail again, all over the world, then we'll have time for things like wedding rings, and free hearts will sing. When the lights go on again, all over the world. When the lights go on again, all over the world, and the boys are home again, all over the world, and the rain or snow is all that may fall from the skies above. A kiss won't mean goodbye, but hello to love. When the lights go on again, all over the world, and the ships they sail again, all over the world, then we'll have time for things like wedding rings, and free hearts will sing. When the lights go on again, all over the world.
Your Majesty, the beacons which you have initiated are now burning all over the nation. In days gone by, they were used as a means of communication. At the time of the Armada, for instance, the news of the impending invasion was signaled from hill to hill. Nowadays, the beacon has been replaced by the radio and the telephone. To symbolize this changeover, Sir Ian Vallance, chairman of BT, will invite Your Majesty to switch on the laser, which will take the signal to the BT tower and thence around the nation.
From VE night 50 years ago to today, a cavalcade of 50 years and the British musical.
So, there it is, a weekend of extraordinary emotions and extraordinary sights 50 years ago, and even more so this evening. Then there was relief at the victory, gratitude for the end of the killing, anxiety at the fighting still ahead in the Far East, horror at the revelations of the extermination camps, dismay at the cost of the war, and disbelief at the scale of the task of reconstruction, fear that we would bungle the peace. And all the events that we've had in the arena this evening have been being watched around the United Kingdom and those other sites where they've been celebrating. Let's go over to Guernsey and Juliet Morris.
Well, here too, the party's in full swing to celebrate, of course, Victory in Europe Day. We've got torchbearers, military bands, thousands of people have turned out to celebrate. And of course, here the party's going to go on, because in fact, it was tomorrow, May the 9th, that the Channel Islands were officially liberated. Young and old are here tonight, all joining in the festivities. Now, 50 years ago, of course, these people would have had a curfew imposed on them. They wouldn't have been allowed to stay out. Tonight, they're going to be here for a long while yet.
They are, so they are, over in Portsmouth. The beacon is burning there. Howard Stableford has been watching the events above Portsmouth on Portsdown Hill.
When Portsmouth celebrated VE Day in 1945, it was said that the city let itself go freely in the spirit of rejoicing. While celebrating 50 years of peace this weekend, the same spirit has been abundantly clear. There were more street parties here than in any other city in the country, and each one claiming to be the most authentic and the loudest. And then here this evening up on Portsdown Hill, a lad who watched his city blaze all those years ago lit the beacon of peace. It's been great fun, mixed in with poignant memories of 6 terrible years of endurance for the people and the city of Portsmouth.
And the Post Office Tower, BT Tower, throbbing with light after that spectacular climax to the celebrations in and from Hyde Park this evening. So what are our thoughts today? Well, we had a Cold War, but that was better than a hot one. The United States and Russia are on speaking terms. Europe has forgiven itself. And whatever the problems and nastinesses of the new post-Cold War world, nobody believes the problems would have been less if the European war had not ended in the defeat of fascism. The beacons are burning, celebrating that defeat, celebrating that victory. And to celebrate that victory, there is no need for apology. Join us at around 10 to 11 for highlights of today's and the weekend's events. For the moment, it's a very good evening from Hyde Park.